G'day, welcome back to RC Model Reviews, and the title of this video is not a clickbait title. It's absolutely damn right. If you live in America, things are about to change so dramatically. I suspect that in 6 weeks' time, or maybe 2 months' time, your hobby shop shelves will be empty of models. And the online stores in America will be empty of models. Why? Well, because remote ID is coming in, and believe it or not, as of the 16th of September, that's next month, just 6 weeks away as I make this video, all new drones, and remember, as far as regulators are concerned, that includes fixed wing model aircraft, all sorts of things, all of them have to have fitted as standard equipment, standard remote ID. That's right, it's not an option. It has to be provided as part of the drone. So if you want to buy a Mavic 3, it has to have standard remote ID. That's probably not a problem. DJI have said, we can do it with software. So as of that date, they'll start shipping them with software that enables the drone itself to send out all the data and have standard remote ID, because their transmitters either have a phone in them with a GPS, or they have a GPS in the transmitter. So they can do that because the standard remote ID has to broadcast not only the position of the drone, but the position of the operator. So you need GPS at both ends, right? But what about something like a FMS Super Cub? Okay, you want to buy an FMS Super Cub? I'm sorry, it'll have to come with standard remote ID. And do you think it will? No, of course it won't, because you can't just take, something like this transmitter here and set it up with standard remote ID. It doesn't have GPS in it. And also the protocols we're using will not be sending, even if it did have GPS, they don't send any GPS data to the model. They just send servo data, position data, that sort of thing. So there's no way to communicate, even if you had a GPS, communicate that data to your model. So your model cannot broadcast the ground station position, therefore can never be compliant with the standard remote ID. So this poses a huge problem. You can't ship and bind and fly because you can't provide standard remote ID, and the rule states it must have it. If it's manufactured after the 16th of September, it must have standard remote ID. So the bind and flies are all going. All those park zones, all those other bind and flies, you will not legally be able to buy and use them. Or you can't sell them, so I guess you can't buy them. So people don't realise this. What the hell is going on with the AMA? I guess the AMA don't really care, because they've been lulled into this situation. They've been bought off by the FAA, who've said, well, don't worry, you guys, you support what we're doing, and we'll give you these special freedoms. We'll call you a CBO, and you can have a FRIA, where your members don't have to use remote ID. That doesn't change the fact that even AMA members will not be able to buy bind and fly models, because they'll have to have standard remote ID, and that won't be possible. So even if you're an AMA member, it doesn't help at all for you unless you're building out of sticks of balsa and film and so forth, and you'll be all right. You build your own, that's fine. But if you're buying a pre-built, like most of us do these days, most people buy a plug and fly or a bind and fly, a foamy, whatever. That's the backbone of the hobby these days from a fixed wing perspective. Not possible anymore under the remote ID regulations as of 6 weeks' time. Okay, so your legacy models, fine, no problem. Models you've already got, no problem. You don't even have to put a little remote ID module on them for another year, until the 16th of September 2023. But new stuff coming out of the factory has to have that standard remote ID on it. So what a manufacturer is going to do, what a retailer is going to do, what an online store is going to do, you can't sell this stuff because it's no longer compliant with the rule. Did they not see this coming? Or have I misinterpreted the rule? I don't think they saw it coming. I don't think anyone was actually paying attention to all this stuff. No one's been paying attention. I said ages ago, you must fight remote ID with every fibre in your body. And we've had the AMA saying, no, it's all right, don't worry, we've got our FRIAs, we'll be fine. But even then, this comes into effect in 6 short weeks. 6 short weeks. And we don't even have community-based organisations appointed yet, and let alone have any FRIAs designated. And the thing that is also interesting is that the specifications for remote ID, we know it's supposed to send position and time and session ID and your registration ID and the ground station ID or ground station position, all that sort of stuff, but there's no detail yet. That's the broad overview. There's no detail that says the packet must look like this, so many bytes for this, so many bytes for that, this format for the time, etc., etc. There's none of that information being published yet. So, and also the RF, it says can use Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. Well, which should it use, or can it use both, or what's the story? There's a whole lot of unknowns yet. The FAA hasn't even published that data, and we're 6 weeks from implementation. Now, I don't know any manufacturer that once you drop those specifications on them could design the hardware, design the firmware, lay out the boards, have them manufactured, have them tested, and get them to shop floors in 6 weeks. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So it's the FAA is pushing ahead with this remote ID thing, and nobody's ready. You know, nobody's ready, and it's going to be a complete fiasco. It's going to put the handbrake on the hobby. It really is. Unbelievable, but they're going ahead. I think what's going to happen is they're going to push that date out. They'll have to push that date out because they're just totally unprepared. Everybody's unprepared for this. It's like, oh, we didn't realise. So I expect we're going to have it pushed out by at least 6 months, maybe 3, but most likely 6 months it'll be pushed out. So I wouldn't worry too much about 16th of September. However, if you're a Part 107 operator, this affects you even more in a really bad way, because if you're a model flyer, recreational model flyer, and you build a drone, or you build a model aircraft, that's okay. You don't have to put remote ID on it because it's a home built. Okay, home built, so don't have to worry about that for another year when you can put a module on it. You don't have to have standard remote ID on a home built. You can just use the module. That's fine. So you might think, great, no worries. 107, we'll just build our own drones. Piece of cake. No. Doesn't work that way. In fact, it's even worse for you guys. Let's take the case of a YouTube RC model reviewer. Not me, because I'm in New Zealand. A US-based YouTube RC model reviewer. We've got heaps of them. We've got RC Sailors. We've got, Captain Drone? We've got Joshua Bardwell. There's heaps of people who make money reviewing products on YouTube. And even people that just post videos, Mr. Steele and so forth, they're all 107 because they have to be, because it's in furtherance of a business. They're 107 operators. So someone might send one of these reviewers a quad frame. No worries, we'll just build the quad up. So they build up the quad. Yeah, it's home built, isn't it? No, it's not. I'm sorry, but it's not, because if we look at the FAA's definition of home built, home built only applies to recreational stuff. If we look at Title 14 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 21.19 brackets G, it says with a home built, the major portion of which has, this is a home built. A home built is where the major portion has been fabricated and assembled by person or persons who undertook the construction project solely, this is the gotcha, solely for their own education and recreation. Now, if you're doing this as a business, it's not solely for education or recreation, obviously. If you've got a YouTube channel, you're not doing anything solely for education or recreation. If you put a video up, that's in furtherance of a business. If you do a build and you make a video of that and put it up on YouTube, it has to have standard remote ID if you build it after the 16th of September. And you might say, yeah, but I won't monetize the video. Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a monetized video. Anything, because you might have affiliate links, or you might have other videos that are monetized, and anything that brings traffic to your channel and which might get people going on to other videos is in furtherance of a business. So you are building it in furtherance of a business. Therefore, it doesn't qualify for the home built exemption. You are going to have to fit standard remote ID and certify that it complies with all the necessary things, paperwork, cost. It's not going to be practical. It is not going to be practical for people to build stuff on YouTube and make money out of it in any way, shape or form. And the same goes even people like RC Sailors. They might think, well, we'll get one of these new, I don't know, FMS, whatever, maybe it's another Super Cub or something, and we'll review it. No, because they won't be making them in a way that you can review them, because they won't be coming with standard remote ID. You won't be able to get any of those things. And for example, Flight Test might want to build another huge foam board model, fantastic, and then document it on the channel and fly it. They're going to have to get standard remote ID fitted. And there are no off-the-shelf standard remote ID systems. And there's not even the spec yet, not even the full spec. And this all comes into effect in 6 short weeks. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the FAA have been caught sleeping. And this is a giant fiasco. It's just unbelievable. It's a dog's breakfast, to be totally honest. But that's the way the FAA in American politics works, isn't it? I can't say ours is any better, but my God, this is a complete and utter disaster. So we're not going to see any more reviews or build videos on YouTube because people can't comply. And we're not going to see any more bind and flies or plug and flies, maybe not even any ARFs, because the bulk of the work isn't done by the person that's going to use it. It's done by a factory somewhere else. So it's built by them. You're just not even really assembling a lot of the stuff. So it's really, really dodgy, isn't it? What are you going to do, you guys? Basically, the FAA has shut down your hobby. Shut down all new purchases unless you go sub 250. All you can do is go sub 250. So I expect to see a lot of really small models being reviewed on YouTube because it's the only thing people will be able to do. And I also expect to see companies making a lot of sub 50 stuff now. Plug and fly, bind and fly, ready to fly, because it's the only thing they can legally make without having to include standard remote ID. Did you people not see this coming? I mean, I think I warned people right back at the beginning when registration was moved to don't buy into this. You must reject registration at all costs because it's the thin end of a very nasty wedge. And people said, no, registration, that's all right. We'll register, that's all right. It's only $5 or something, it doesn't matter. Then we had the remote ID bill, or remote ID rule. And now look at it, they've shut you down. You won't be able to buy new stuff unless you want to build it yourself from scratch, and only if you're recreational. If you're a 107 flyer, you're making videos for YouTube, forget it. You can't even build it yourself without standard remote ID as of the 16th of September 2022. Now, I hope I've got this wrong. It's possible. I mean, I make a lot of mistakes. So go down to the comments, tell me what you think. Am I right? Is this the way you read the remote ID rule? That's the way I read it, and I've looked at it pretty damn hard. So, yeah, I'd say if you're a Part 107 flyer, get stuck in now and build every drone you're going to need for the next year. Build it now and register it, so you don't have to have standard remote ID fitted to it. You can wait for, you can put a module on when the, I don't know, no, you can't even do that actually. You can, but you can't change the module out. It has to be, you can't swap modules if you're a Part 107. If you're a recreational flyer next year, you'll be able to swap the remote ID module from plane to plane. Not if you're Part 107, you're going to have one module for every craft. And they must be all individually registered. So do it now and save yourself a bit of expense and a bit of confusion, a bit of heartache over the next 12 months is what I'd say. That is, of course, unless the FAA push that out, because they've been so bloody lazy and incompetent, they're not going to meet their stated targets for the first phase of implementation. There you go, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my Patreon supporters. You make it possible for me to keep an eye on things outside my own country and report, hopefully, information that you can use. And I don't know, how do you save the situation? It's unbelievable. Even I didn't believe things would get this bad so very, very quickly. Bye for now.